Appreciate you doing it. First of all, the driveway here behind me, even at this late hour, people drive through here faster than they should. If anybody's going to get hit tonight, I much prefer it to be me and not you guys. The farther away you are, the safer you are, okay? The second reason is this, and this is the one I like better. Do you guys remember a little while ago we talked about the unseen source that may take your hand, put an arm around your shoulder, give you a hug? What better place for that to happen than when your back's to a cemetery and you can't see what's behind you? All right, that being said, guys, let's begin. Are any of you familiar with the Dobbin house here in town? Roughly. There's a hand up in the back.
Yeah, it's where Lincoln stayed the night he gave the Gettysburg Address.
Nope.
No.
David Will's house on the square.
Damn it.
Sorry. No. Guys, the Dobbin house, if you're not familiar, is actually right across the street. If you guys can't see it, take a step forward. The big 2-story stone house sitting just right across the street, that's the Dobbin house here in town. We're going to hear a story about that in just a minute. Let me give you guys a little background on it. It was built in 1776 by the Reverend Alexander Dobbin. Now we know that he and his wife had 9 children. Now it wasn't long after the 9th child was born. The Reverend's wife passed. Now he did remarry some years later. The Reverend's new wife had another 10 kids.
Good for her.
It's a big place, guys. It predates the Civil War by almost 90 years. So we know that house sat here would have been used as a hospital at some point. It was a private residence for the Reverend and his family. He also used it as a school for quite a few years, where he taught, among other things, Greek and Latin to the folks here in town. There is one use that building has that not many people are aware of. Even some of the residents of Gettysburg don't know this. And that's the story that we're going to hear, but not quite yet. Folks, one more favor if I might. If I could ask each of you to turn around for me, please, and take a look through the cemetery. Do you guys see where the traffic light is? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Just beyond that traffic light, and you may be able to make it out, I believe it's lit up. Just beyond the traffic light is a single-story stone house. It's on the right-hand side. You guys see it? Yes. You may be able to make it out. Yeah. If you walk up Steinmore Avenue, guys, you know where Tommy's Pizza is? It's right here. If you stand at Tommy's Pizza and look up the street, you'll see it. Today it's known as Servant's Old Time Photos. It's a small little building. But for years, that building has had stories associated with it about strange happenings. One of our favorites is this. A few years back, a woman and her friend were here in town, and they'd heard about the odd happenings in that building. So they decided to wait until it's late one night, and they go up and check it out. What they find, the women said as they walked up, there are 2 windows and a front door. There were mannequins, they said, standing in those 2 windows in the front door. And the woman telling the story said she'd been to Gettysburg many times. She visited that building more times than she could remember. But she never remembered the mannequin standing there. The next day, they both went back. And the woman telling the story, she walks in, meets the lady behind the counter, and says, "What went on here last night?" She said, "Why were the mannequins standing in the windows?" She said, "I've been here a lot of times and I've never seen them there before. What happened to them?" The woman behind the counter gave her kind of an odd look, and she said, "Ma'am, what do you mean mannequins? There have never been any mannequins in these windows." She said, "I've worked here nearly 10 years, and we've never done that." Interesting. Folks, it's an old-time photography studio, okay? The first window you come to looks on one of the big open rooms. The second window, toward the far end, just a little tiny window, and of course there's the front door. Were they really mannequins? Let's hear this next story and then you guys can decide. The story begins this way. The couple this happened to, their experience is this. We're allowed to tell you guys what happened to them on this condition. They don't want us to reveal their name or even where they were staying when it happened. So with that in place, our story begins. This couple came to Gettysburg. They'd heard about the odd happenings in that house, like many people had. And they decided to go check it out for themselves. They tell us they simply leave their hotel one night. They're quite sure the building is closed. They said it was late. They walk up Steinmore Avenue, and they approach that building. The very first window they come to, what do? Well, they said they stopped, and they peeked inside. Of course, it's dark. They didn't see very much. They back up, and they walk toward the front door. Again, they peek inside. For a second time, they said they can't see very much because it's dark. But as they back off, they're talking to each other about some of the odd things that they've heard about, some of the stories. And they notice something strange. They said as they looked back to that first window they just peeked in, it completely fogged in. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't go back and look inside. They said they turned and looked at the front door, and it too had completely fogged over. Well, now they begin to wonder, are the stories we've heard true? What's going on with this place? They have one final front window to check out. As they move toward it, they notice that like the other two windows, or I should say the door of the front window, that third window completely fogged over. So now they can't see in the building at all. Before they leave the building that night, they do something that a lot of us might. If you guys had been up there and that happened to you, what would you have done before you left the building? Try to wipe it? Okay. Knocked on it? All right. Anything else? People taking pictures, right? How many of you guys would have tried the door handle? No, okay. Guys, it's exactly what they did. That couple walked right back by the front door and tried the door handle. They had to get inside. It's late, the building was locked. But they decide right then and there, they say, you know what, tomorrow, no matter what we do, we have got to get back in this building. No matter what else happens. Let's fast forward. Later that next day, the couple again said they left their hotel room and they walk right up to that building on Steinmore Avenue. This time, though, they don't stop to look at any windows. They go right for the front door. As they tell it, they said they walk up, try the handle. It opens, and they walk in. The door, they said, shut behind them. They had only taken a few steps into that big main room, and they report hearing a very loud male voice telling them, "Get out!" They take a few more steps, and they hear another male voice. This one telling them, "Leave now." They make the assumption that a lot of people might. They think the building is closed, and they make their way back toward the front door. Guys, imagine what happens. The couple walks up to that door, they try the door handle from the inside. Just as that door opens, a third voice is heard from behind them. They turn and look, and a woman is speaking to them. It's a woman who had been working there. She came out from the back and said, "Folks, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come in. Can I help you find something?" The couple said, "No, ma'am, we were just leaving. The men that are here screamed at us to leave, so we're going to go." She stopped and said, "Folks, are you sure that you heard two men screaming at you to leave?" They said, "Yes, ma'am, they were loud. Didn't you hear them?" She takes the couple that had came in and showed them around through the building. It's only a few small rooms. What do they find? Well, they find that it's only the woman working that day. There are no men there at all. She apologized for any kind of inconvenience, and she asked the couple to come back. Now, we don't know if they ever visited again. What we do know, though, is this. They did a bit of research about that building before they leave Gettysburg, and they find two very interesting things. You guys are a little bit familiar with the Civil War, right? What happened here in Gettysburg? No. Have you heard the name John Reynolds? Mm-hmm. Who was he?
General.
Yep, what did he do?
He died here.
Yeah, he died here. Fair enough. Guys, he was a Union infantry commander. He was well known and he was well loved by the troops here in town. Yeah, he was injured, or I shouldn't say injured, killed pretty early on the first day's fight, just outside of town. He was literally carried from where he fell to that house and laid to rest until he could be given a proper burial. The second thing that these folks find out, that house was built by a man who had the same first and last name. Odd, right? What was his name?
John Reynolds.
No, it wasn't Reynolds. His name was George.
Oh, okay.
So if you hear about the George house, folks, it's that house we just spoke about. Could it be that today, when folks go and visit the old-time photography studio, could it be that George and John are still in there and they're screaming at people to get out because they want to rest in peace? Folks, it's possible. But I want you to consider this as well. If you get a chance, go visit that building. When you walk in the front door, something I want you to pay real attention to. As you guys go inside, shut the door behind you and look to your left. There's a little nook or an alcove right underneath the steps. That's where John Reynolds' body was laid to rest. That third window that we talked about looks right up to that nook or that little alcove. Okay? Also, ask them about the blood on the floor. John Reynolds' body, guys, was laid to rest there. His blood is still in that building. It's seeped down through the old floorboards. Those are covered up, but the blood stains are still there. Okay? You'll never get a chance to see them because they're in the crawl space beneath the building. but the owners of that building are well aware of it. So could George, and John still be in there? Possible. All right. Folks, questions as we continue.